Welcome to Trafficking in America Now. We're going to take this program to promote our upcoming conference in May of this year. We had our first conference almost a year ago.
I know. It's amazing.
Man. And there's been so much birthed out of that conference that we'll talk about. And we want to promote this conference. We want to invite you guys to come out and be a part of the conference this year if you can. If you have an interest, if you're watching this program, you probably need to come see this, be a part of this conference, at least one day of the conference. We're going to have so many great speakers that you have lined up. We're going to have some new things that we haven't done before.
Yes.
And that's going to be exciting.
Yes.
So first I'd like to ask you, what were some of the highlights of the conference in 2011? And where did we have that, remember?
Oh, yeah, the 2011 conference was in Nashville, of course, at the Holiday Inn.
I know you remember.
I know, Holiday Inn on Elm Hill Pike, right off of Briley. It was a great location for the conference.
Had a big atrium.
Big atrium. It was
waterfall.
beautiful and flowing waterfalls. Yes, it's a wonderful facility. It really is. And it's close to a lot of things, too. It's close to Opryland.
Airport.
Close to the airport. You have a lot of restaurants. Yes. So it was a great location. And it's going to be at the same place this year.
Good.
The dates are May 24th, 25th, and 26th.
Is that a holiday weekend?
It is. It's Memorial Day weekend, which makes it really for a good family event because you'll have Sunday and Monday to stay over in Nashville and enjoy some of the things going on in Nashville.
You get a chance to give yourself a vacation and get educated as well.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Get educated, then take a breather, relax, and go back home and go to work.
Good deal.
Yes.
Well, give me a review some of those 2011 conference highlights again that stand out in your mind.
Well, the most vivid to me is the one about the 5 youth that came to the conference. I did not know there were youth actually at the conference to begin with, and met them. It's open to youth, yes. We want youth to come, probably age 10, 11, 12 and up would be ideal. But the last day of the conference, I did meet 3 young people there. Their grandmother introduced me to them. And a couple weeks after the conference, she emailed me and she said, Yvonne, I just want you to know about my grandchildren and what happened at the conference. So as a result of that, these 3 young children were going to grow up to become pimps before they came to the conference. The father is a pimp and the uncle is a pimp, and they were grooming their grandchildren to become pimps. And we're talking.
It was a normal thing to do, didn't they?
Yeah, they thought it was normal. Exactly, they thought it was normal. The youngest girl was 9 years old, and there was an 11-year-old, and I believe it's a 13-year-old, and they were going to be pimps. So they come to the conference and they hear Giselle Rodriguez and her presentation on the pimp culture and what it's all about. And she said now they are saying they don't want to be pimps because of what they learned about the pimp culture and what they really do. They went and told their peers and their friends at church. And so it changed their lives. So I cried and I cried and I cried when I read that email, and I talked to her on the phone about it. And
you talked to who?
The grandmother. She brought them to the conference. So yay, Grandma, for bringing your kids to this conference, your grandchildren to this conference. It changed their lives. And there were 2 other youth there also, aged 14 and 15, and they had the same reaction. They did not know the reality of what the pimp culture was and what they were really doing. And they began to change their speech because they knew what they were saying was wrong. What
was some of the feedback you got from some of the speakers that we had that attended the conference?
Feedback was excellent. Of course, Giselle Rodriguez, I just mentioned. Giselle was rated on our survey as the most liked speaker because of the information that she presented. Julian Schur was our keynote last year, and he got very high ratings. All the speakers got excellent ratings.
Julian and Giselle were excellent.
Excellent speakers.
Julian wrote a book called Somebody's Daughter.
Somebody's Daughter, yes. And that's actual accounts of human trafficking victims in the country.
And he was undercover for years.
He wasn't really undercover. He worked with the police departments to, go on investigations and rode with them to learn what was going on. Yes.
And then what were some of the topics that we covered last year?
Last year we covered, of course, the pimp culture. We covered what human trafficking is. We covered how our finances are affecting the sex trafficking trade by what we're investing in. That was an eye-opener to some people. We had a pastor there. Yes.
Tell his story briefly.
Yes, and he's actually coming back to the conference again to tell more and to educate us more, but he's an investment counselor, and he discovered that in his denomination, the retirement fund that he was contributing to for the pastors was, no, I don't think he was managing, but he was investing in it. Okay. He discovered that some of the funds they were investing in supported businesses that contributed to human trafficking and the growth of human trafficking. So he confronted the organization about it, and it wasn't a very happy picture. They actually threatened to fire him over it, but he now is going around the country and talking about retirement programs and educating people on what to look for when they invest in their retirement programs.
So you don't want to unconsciously invest your money in things that perpetuate human trafficking or other criminal activities.
That's right.
We need to be constantly aware. It's called conscious capitalism. We don't need just to put our money out and don't care where the return comes from, as long as we get a return.
Exactly.
We want to consciously, deliberately, and ethically and morally invest as well, our money as well as our time. Now, what were some of the other subjects that were covered? We had Giselle.
Well, we had Giselle. We had some survivors there. We had 3 survivors. We had Ann Bissell from California, who actually was a trafficked victim years ago. And for the last 20 years since she has come out of that and been restored, she's been going around the country helping people understand this issue. She's interviewed on a lot of television programs and talk shows. She was there. We had Colette Burke from Free for Life that spoke about.
Nashville.
She's in Nashville, and she spoke about her work in human trafficking internationally. And then we had her husband, Dan Burke, who has a ministry called Doctors at War, to inspire people to use their own talents and their own trade to work and identify with human trafficking and see what they can do to use their own talents to help in this area.
He's an emergency room physician here in Nashville, is he not?
He's at Vanderbilt. Emergency room physician, yes, he is.
Okay.
So,
and a few others.
A few of the other ones, oh gosh, let me think. We had some law enforcement. We had Antoinette Welch, who was an assistant district attorney. She was our guest last week.
For 2 shows.
Yes, she was. And she gave her presentation. We had the FBI represented. We had TBI presented their report. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigations presented their report, their study on sex trafficking in Tennessee. And that was an eye-opener.
First reports we discovered later that any state has done that extensive of a survey.
We're the first and only state so far.
In our case, 95 counties.
Yes.
They surveyed the trafficking activity by county.
Yes.
And put it in this wonderful booklet that outlined all the different, nearness to interstates and all the other factors that you don't even consider when you think about human trafficking. And now I understand that other states are interested in modeling a similar survey in their state.
They are. I'm getting requests for people to do surveys in their states, and all over the country people are contacting me about what they can do in their state to become educated and to help their states understand the issues within their own boundaries.
Let's take just a minute now and watch a interview of Giselle Rodriguez, who presented on the Pimp Culture last year. She's actually being interviewed about her subject, her topic.
Basically, what pimps do is they lure someone with a false promise. They offer them either love, protection, whatever it is that person is missing. And they use that to be able to exploit them for monetary gain, for benefits such as drugs, house, materialistic things. With human trafficking, the actual definition is the harboring, the transportation, or transporting, luring of a person for some type of benefit. So again, when you start looking at what happens in other human trafficking scenarios, you see that with the pimping culture. We're used to thinking human trafficking in the United States as someone who is lured to the U.S. with the promise of a job, and then all of a sudden whatever was promised to them doesn't happen, and they're duped and then forced into something they didn't want to do. So it's the same exact thing with the pimping culture. They offer these girls this dream life, and that doesn't happen, and they force these girls into doing things that they really didn't want to do or never imagined that they would be doing.
Giselle Rodriguez, whom you just saw on the clip that we just watched together, she'll be back at our conference this year. Now, she'll present again on what she's discovered on pimp culture, which was, as you mentioned, one of the most popular topics of all the speakers last year. But she's also going to expand into labor trafficking this year. Why?
The reason Giselle is going to talk about labor trafficking, when I discovered through her own presentation in Florida last year what labor trafficking was really all about, it blew me away. Sex trafficking victims, 2.7 million across the world. She told me there's 212 million victims of labor trafficking cases, abuses across the world, worldwide. That's over 10, 12 times the amount of sex trafficking, and most of the time the labor trafficking cases include sex trafficking. Labor trafficking victims are also sexually abused. So we need to become educated a lot more about labor trafficking in regard to children especially, and American companies that are involved in labor trafficking.
Unfortunately, like Apple.
Unfortunately, like Apple.
Apple has 43,000 American employees.
But how many in China?
1 million, 2 million in China, and most of them are in slave labor.
We don't know if it's most, but a lot.
Well, in companies like Foxconn, where they're actually made to sleep in dormitories. They can't speak to one another. They work 30-hour weeks, 35 cents an hour, just so we can have our Apples and our
iPods.
And iPhones. In the interview that I saw about this in a documentary, the gentleman was asked, how much more would this product cost if it were not made with slave labor? And he said 23% more. Now, I think almost anybody in the world would pay 23% more for a non-labor trafficked product that's made by a young child under these conditions.
Right, I agree.
But in the seminar that I went to in Knoxville recently, where Anna Rodriguez, Giselle's mother, spoke on labor trafficking, she said the driving demand is cheap labor.
Right.
Everybody wants cheap products. We want them cheaply, but we're not willing to pay the price, just a little more of a price to have the product, but we don't realize what a price the people that manufacture these products have to pay in order to give us cheap products.
And it's not just what they're paid, which is what, 10, 15, 20, 30 cents an hour,
conditions.
But it's the conditions and how they're treated, working 16, 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, 12 people in a room,
not allowed
beaten,
to talk to
not
your
allowed
roommate.
to talk. It's the conditions with which they're employing these people, and that's the tragedy.
And the reason I'm bringing this out now is not to beat up Apple or any other company. Well, maybe yes, to beat them up. They need to be beat up. But also the fact that this is just now becoming a part of our social consciousness in America, that labor trafficking and cheap products are the result of cheap labor, which is a result of forced labor, which is another word for slavery.
Exactly.
Okay. So she'll be talking more about that and bring us up to date on the latest statistics. You might not realize in the audience that country clubs and condominiums, where there's a lot of maintenance going on, are a big, they buy these traffic victims from traffickers by the hundreds. And there's just Chinese restaurants, hospitality, like hotels. And so you need to be aware of what's going on. We need to be willing maybe to pay in the future as the economy turns around, which it's doing, thankfully, a little bit more money for products, bearing in mind that cheap labor and cheap products are not cheap in the long run. And we're responsible as consumers, once we become aware of this, to do our part to help stem the tide from the money aspect. All right. Now, one or two more topics that we'll cover that were covered last year that really stood out, and then we'll begin to talk about the 2012.
Well, the demand, you know, we talked a lot about the demand issue at the conference, and we just are trying to really pinpoint the demand, because if you don't have the demand going on, there's not going to be a product. So merging that into this year's conference, we're doing a huge focus on the demand this year. We're going to be having separate forums. We have a for men only forum. We have a for boys only forum under 18.
What's the purpose?
The purpose is to separate the men from the women, where they're more comfortable hearing and speaking about issues. safe environment, maybe a nurturing environment, a healing environment. The speakers and the presenters at the different forums for women's only, for girls only, they're going to be people that can, number one, educate, but number two, they have the heart to help you understand that you can be healed from anything you're covering up inside, and feel free to talk about it. So we're having these separate forums. We're having a pastor's forum for pastors only, because as we know, pornography is a huge issue in the clergy. So we're doing that in a unique way this year, to really touch on the demand and heal our society from these issues.
What are we doing on pornography this year? Because you mentioned it's such a demand, it's a demand side issue, it's a driver of human trafficking.
It is.
And all the people who have been delivered from or came out from addiction to pornography can testify and speak to the fact that it is addictive.
Right.
There is a brain process, a firing process,
right.
the same as takes place with any other addictive service substance, such as marijuana or any hard drug.
Right.
It absolutely follows the same brain patterns and affects the cells of the brain neurologically in the same exact way as any other addictive substance, as I mentioned.
Right.
And it's a driver for trafficking, for prostitution, even for murder.
Right.
Because the craving continues to accelerate exponentially to where you can't get satisfied with what satisfied you yesterday doesn't satisfy you today, and they go deeper and deeper into this.
Exactly. And Steve Seiler, who presented at the last conference on pornography, one of our former television guests, Steve will be back at the conference, and he'll have double the time he had last year to present on pornography. We also have a young woman that will be assisting me in the forum on Hollywood this year, and she's going to be talking about the pornography in the film industry. So we're really going to attack the issue of pornography and what's being made normal in our culture to try and help us understand this is not normal and this is not okay.
And we're not going about this from a religious point of view. This is not, we're going about this from a practical, realistic. Now, everything we do is spiritual.
Right.
We're spiritual people. But we're not bringing religion into this, and we're not looking at pornography from the standpoint of, is it okay in your religion? We know it's probably not.
It's a humanities issue.
But it's a part of our culture that affects human trafficking, as we mentioned earlier, it affects prostitution. It's a driving demand side force.
It's a driving force that's destroying humanity.
And it's an addiction.
That's right.
And it's astounding when you begin to hear the numbers, and like you even mentioned, in the congregations and in the clergy that are addicted to this. We'll take a little short break here. We'll be right back.
And one of our board members is Dr. Judith Reisman, and for the last 30, 40 years, she has been trying to warn people about Kinsey. And what happens when people watch pornography is our minds can't tell the difference between what is real and imagined. And Judith Reisman calls it erototoxins. And there's actually a mirroring that goes place when somebody watches pornography, and there's some mapping that goes on. So really, if we want to fight against child sex trafficking and modern-day slavery, we have to encourage people to turn away from the images. So that's a big start right there.
Okay, for our 2012 conference coming up in
May 24th, 25th, and 26th, 2012.
Which is
Memorial Day weekend.
Okay.
A great time to come.
At
the Holiday Inn on Elm Hill Pike off of Briley. Elm Hill and Briley.
In Nashville, Tennessee.
In Nashville, Tennessee.
And we invite each and every one of you to come be a part of that with us this year. Everybody that attended last year commented. You had a few comments before we go into this new conference. On last year's conference, I heard one person say that it was one of our professional speakers that they spoke at and attended conferences all the time. And this conference last year was the best conference they'd ever attended.
She'd been to, yes. We received that comment several times. So that was nice to hear.
And we have, this one is new and improved. So tell us now about 2012 conference on May
24th, 25th, 26th, 2012.
Holiday
Inn, Nashville, Tennessee.
And who is our keynote speaker? Start out with.
This is probably the most exciting thing for me. Is our keynote speaker this year is Norma Ramos, who is the executive director of the Coalition Against Trafficking in Women New York. Remember, we met Norma back in 2007. She saw our film and just loved the film and was applauding it because it addressed the real issues.
That's the day that we had lunch with her.
Yes, we had lunch with her in New York.
It cost me $350 for parking.
Parking tickets, yeah. We went to New York to meet her, and Marion got 2 parking tickets because the sign was way up and he didn't see them. And anyway, New York's really odd about stuff like that.
Be careful when you park.
But we, yeah, it was a costly lunch, but she was gracious and sent us to a nice place in Lower New Jersey. She wasn't that gracious.
She didn't offer to pay for the parking ticket.
She didn't. But Norma is an amazing person. To me, of all the speakers and professionals I have learned about since dealing with human trafficking, Norma to me is the most knowledgeable and the most passionate in what she does, because she's been working this like over 20 years.
Hands-on.
Hands-on with legislature, with advocacy, with giving the truth about prostituted people and the real issue.
Trying to change the language and the culture.
Trying to change the language and letting us understand that this is not an okay deal, and we just can't deal with it in America. We have to change it.
For example, instead of prostitute, she says
prostituted person. Right, because no one goes out there on their own. They are being forced to do what they're doing, pretty much.
Even if they're lured into it and told how glamorous it is.
Right, so Norma is our keynote, and we're really excited to have her here. You can go to the website to look at her bio and discover more about her.
Which website?
Which website is the www.traffickinginamericaconference.info. .info.
Now, she's also an attorney, isn't she?
Norma is an attorney, yes she is. Okay. But that's an exciting thing for me. Also this year we're going to be having an awards banquet. Rather than ending the 3-day event with a lot of down, I call it down information because it's such a heavy topic to be immersed in for 3 days, we want to end it on a positive note, and that's ending it with an awards banquet. Well, we will honor people.
I wanted just to share here, I know that if you've watched the program before, we don't smile a lot on this program, and it's not that we're sour people, it's just that this is such a serious subject. And when we're presenting this, it's just so hard to even joke about it or have fun. You'll never have more fun than when you're trying to help somebody else.
Right.
And you're laying your life down for your brother, for your sister. But on the other hand, it's just kind of hard to smile about these topics. So I hope you don't think, if you've seen us before, that there are those sour folks again and I'm not going to watch this, because what we do say affects you whether you realize it or not. And we're trying to present this in as serious of a manner as possible.
Right, and if we laugh, it's okay too. We have to laugh about it.
Yeah, we have to laugh to make it through.
Right.
And of course, we've got ourselves to laugh at,
right.
So nobody else.
So the awards banquet is going to be a special event. We're honoring and presenting awards. They're going to be called the Pioneer Awards to 6 different people, which are going to be surprise awards. We're not going to announce them ahead of time. We want it to be a surprise factor. So we're going to end the conference with the banquet.
So we can't tell anybody now who's going to get what?
No, we can't tell anybody now. We will be, I can say this, we're going to have an NGO award. We're going to have a Survivor Award, non-government organization, someone who's been working in human trafficking as an organization. A Survivor's Award, we're going to recognize a survivor. We're going to recognize a youth who has done a lot of work to educate their friends and peers.
And the Valor Award.
We're going to a Valor Award.
What is the Valor Award for?
The Valor Award is for someone who has really, in the face of adversity, gone that extra mile to stop human trafficking.
Courage in the face of adversity.
Courage in the face of adversity. We have that award. And we also have an award we're going to be presenting to a safe house, someone who has opened a safe house and done amazing work there. So
hands-on work.
Hands-on work to really bring restoration.
Yes,
restoration. So we're excited about that. And we'll have the Sister Walk again this year. The Sister Walk is where...
I was surprised. To me, that didn't appeal to me at all.
I know it didn't, but it did appeal to a lot of the girls. The girls...
But it was quite popular, wasn't it?
It was very popular.
I was astounded how many people wanted to be a part of that.
It was very popular.
And then ask about it again this year. I wanted to make sure you had it as a part of the program.
Well, last year it was brand new, and we had, I think, 16 people, which was many more than we anticipated. We thought 4 or 5 people might go on, you know, one walk, but we had 16 people, which gave us 4 teams. So we're going to be having it again this year, and we'll have law enforcement, of course, undercover with us and work it to where it's safe for those that are going on the walk. But what the Sister Walk is groups of men or women going to just give some little gift bags, goodie bags to girls that they believe are being prostituted. We're wanting to go into some of the clubs and do the same thing. So we're putting that together now.
And this year, the one thing that we can do that we weren't able to do last year, we can actually invite the girls to attend Antoinette Welch's, the Assistant DA.
Oh, that'd be fabulous.
Hannah House
we could do that.
Program.
Excellent idea.
Rather than being arrested and attending it.
Hook her up with Antoinette, yeah.
That's not a good way to put it.
Well, you know what I meant.
We could connect her with Antoinette for sure. which she gave an invitation to anybody that wanted to be a part of that program,
Right.
Hannah House,
Right.
for some education about the reality and also some help out
Right.
and an exit strategy for these girls to get out of this lifestyle.
Right.
Because most of them don't want to be in it.
They don't.
And they don't know how to get out of it.
Exactly. Exactly.
And they don't have any money because even though they're making money, it's all being taken from
Right.
them. So the Sister Walk can turn out to be something that looks like it's going to be a perpetual part of what we do.
It is. We want to actually make that a perpetual ongoing project where we do it on a regular basis here in our area and across the country for those that want to.
All right. Tell us another. Now, this is the 2012, the conference that's coming up here in just a few months.
Right.
2012 conference, Human Trafficking in America conference. We're focusing on domestic human trafficking
Right.
in the United States of America as opposed to the international.
Right.
Our focus is America. Tell us a few of the other speakers and topics.
Really quick, okay? We have one that I'm really excited about. We're actually going to Florida to video a young man who's been in prison for 30 years. He's a sex offender. And we're going to be interviewing him. He's created programs in the Florida prison system about the sex offenders and the criminal mind. So we're going to be interviewing him, and he'll be presenting at the conferences if he's there. So that's going to be, to me, one of the most stirring and inspiring events, forums that we'll have there. And then Truckers Against Trafficking, Candace Paris will be presenting on that. We have a former pimp that's going to be there presenting and telling his story. And then Emily Fitzpatrick from Hope House in Asheville, North Carolina will be there.
She has 2 safe houses.
2 safe houses, one for under 18 and one for over 18. So it's going to be an amazing event this year. A lot of education, a lot of awareness, hands-on activity, and that's it.
And then the last thing too, last year we had so many people ask us, what can I do? I want to get involved in this, I don't know what to do. So if you want to come out and get educated, if you want to become aware of human trafficking just for your own protection and protection of your children, grandchildren, and your neighbors, extended family, to let them know what's going on, this is a great place to do that. If you want to come out and be a part of one of these organizations, whether it's our organization, we have volunteer meetings, once a month?
Yes, once a month.
You'll learn how to do that. You can also learn how to do that from our website, Trafficking in America Now. I want to, as we wrap up today, as I normally do, we'll put these on the bottom of the screen. But if you want to follow us on Facebook, you can join the Trafficking in America Task Force Group, Trafficking in America Task Force Group. And then our website is traffickinginamerica.taskforce.org. And finally, our Twitter site is?
A Dance for Bethany. A Dance for Bethany.
Thank you for joining us in Trafficking in America Now. We hope you'll come out and be a part of the 2012 Trafficking in America Conference in Nashville, Tennessee. See our website for more details. See you next week.
The moment she was born, her mommy and daddy cried, taken by the wonder of her life. From Barbie dolls to ballet shoes, from roller skates to lipstick and rouge, she's become a lady overnight. Why do I see only flesh?